Hey, my name is Sarah and welcome back to another episode of Talking Fast. I'm Sarah. This is Jacob. How are you doing?
Sarah, I'm doing really, really well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. This is an episode where we sometimes we record, I'm going to pull back the curtain like I'm the Wizard of Oz here. Sometimes we record the guest interview before the actual intro, but I like it when we do it that way because then I feel like my energy for the intro
I know I'm buzzing.
is better.
We're buzzing a little bit, and there's also sometimes you have a little bit of nerves because you're like, oh, I got to talk to someone I've never met before. I got to think about these questions, but we already did it, so it's like we're cruising now,
flying through. And you need to stick around because that interview is fantastic.
It's
so on
good.
The other side of this break, but first, the people want to know, what are you eating or drinking this week?
Okay, first of all, I have a question for you. Do you ever use the app Belly?
I've never heard of that in my life.
BELI.
Is this one of those ones where you track restaurants?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And you rate them against one another as opposed to like
Letterboxd? Oh.
A little bit. Yeah,
so
a
not
little bit,
like Letterboxd. You rate them against each other?
Well, it gives you, so it's a score of 10. And you go in and you say, oh, I like this spot, just went to this spot. And then it shows you like that restaurant you just went to and another one that's kind of in the same vein of it. So if you went to an Italian restaurant tonight and you're going to rate it, it's going to give you, first of all, a head-to-head matchup against another Italian restaurant that you just went to.
So like Gusto versus Teroni.
Or that you've been to in the past. Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then it's like, oh, well, I like this one better than Gusto, but a little bit less than this one. And it kind of like hones it in until it like gives you a score. So it's harder to be, or it's easier to be, like honest about your review as opposed to being like, that was a 10 out of 10 experience.
I guess that makes sense because then it's like the recency bias won't hit you either.
Exactly. Now you can go back and re-rate a restaurant if you feel, oh, you've gone to it a couple times, I'm gonna change it a little bit. Anyway, that's a shout out to Belly. Out of all of like the social media platforms, Belly and Pinterest are my top two.
Those aren't like they're social media where you're not interacting with other people. That's why they're the best ones. They're the healthiest ones.
Also, shout out to Miri, who we had on the podcast. Who
she told you about Belly? No, Miri.
No, my friend Vince told me about Belly, but Miri and I are apparently like an 85% match on Belly for the restaurants that we rate.
Oh, that makes sense. She's also an EastEnder.
I know. Yeah, we always talk about the restaurants, and we're like, oh yeah, I love
Miri
that
has
one.
an unbelievable. If there's somebody that I want to message when I need a restaurant recommendation, it's her. So that makes sense.
This is one of the things you don't necessarily have to message them because you can just go on their profile and see what they're recommending, especially in different cities. I love it for travel. That's just a shout out to Belly's. I went to a restaurant in the Junction on the weekend called Dottie's, which was kind of on a hit list for a while. Mm-hmm. Haley and I hit it up after drinks with a friend.
Is this what you guys were posting about on Instagram about it being incredible?
Yeah, probably.
Because they were like best meal ever or new favorite spot or something?
Ooh, I didn't say that, but Haley might have.
Am I like spreading misinformation? Maybe.
It was really good. It's like a little corner neighborhood spot. Sorry, Emma, my sister. It's like 2 blocks away and we didn't say hi. But I was in a rush. Really good burger. Really good pickerel. Really good fish. I didn't have it, Haley did, but I was picking away at it. Great fries. They're like thick cut fries. Okay. And you know what I really respected about a restaurant? It's cold outside. Mm-hmm. They have a couple little benches and chairs on the sides. We sat at the bar and then they had regular tables, but then they let people come in and just chill, wait for a table to open up, grab a drink at the bar, sit on this little bench, wait. It made it like feel like a nice, welcoming neighborhoody spot. Love. Delicious food, but also good vibes. So I'm going to recommend Dottie's over on DuPont. If you're ever in the neighborhood, definitely go and check it out.
I love that. I should check out your Belly account because I need more
restaurant recommendations. I need more friends. I think I only have like 4 people on Belly. Sarah, what are you eating or drinking this week?
Okay, so I used to use meal kits all the time. And then I fell off of them. And then I realized because I had all these credits for like meal kits, like whether it be like because they drop them off at your condo or like whatever, that I literally could be getting meal kits for the next like 3 months essentially for free. So I'm going with HelloFresh right now. And with the cost of groceries, are you freaking kidding me? I literally was doing the simple math in my head. I go, what? Like it makes no sense. Even like when you pay the delivery fee and all like the little charges and stuff.
100%.
The first box that has 3 meals in it cost me like $8 or something.
And the other thing is like they're portioning out the perfect amount of
exactly.
food for
so
these things.
Gonna go bad.
You're not, there's no food waste in this. And I had this, one of my other clients just outside Toronto, Riley, shout out Riley, was just talking about this. It's like, they're giving you the offers anyway. Why not take advantage of them? Order the first month, whatever it may be. You get the perfectly portioned.
Also, like if you're a household with multiple people in it, then you can like get the free things
twice.
A couple
different names.
And also you could shop around and go to different. There's lots of different boxes. So like use one for a couple months until you have to start paying for it. I literally am going to hack this so I can get months of free groceries because honest to God, every time I go to the grocery store, I'm spending at least $200 and I go, this makes no sense. And I'm not even getting enough things to make a proper meal. Also, it's going to help me learn how to make meals.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's also a good way if you want to experiment with different recipes. I did this in the pandemic because I was like, oh, like I'm not really going out and doing that many things. Things are closed, but I also want to, eat pretty well and try new things. It's a good way to not have to go to the grocery store and spend $200 for one big meal to get all the ingredients, spices, and all that kind of stuff that you need. If you're getting all the spices portioned out, is perfect. Yeah.
It's also so different now. Like when I used them a couple of years ago, like I've worked with like Good Food in the past, or I've worked with HelloFresh in the past.
Yeah.
At that time, even a couple of years ago, there just wasn't as many options. So you kind of got to pick between like the 3 meal, like there's the 3 meals that they're going to give you. You maybe get to switch out 1 or 2. They have so many options now. You can add on groceries to it. You can add on all these things. Like you can literally grocery shop through their websites. I had no idea. I've been living naive to it. And with my goal and intention to cook at home more, this is a guaranteed 3 days a week that I will cook at home more. Like I'm going to go home tonight and make my salmon from my HelloFresh box. So meal kits. That's what I've been doing.
I love it. I love it. Sarah, something you are watching and reading this month, this week.
This week. It hasn't even been out for a week yet. I finished Onyx Storm. And
you finished it?
Yes. I finished Onyx Storm. If you follow me on any social media platform, it was my entire personality for the past week. So you would have known that I was reading it. And it was one of those books that when I finished the last page, I flipped because I thought there was another page and then there wasn't. And then I flipped back and I went, that can't be the end.
In a good way or bad way?
In a confused way.
Oh, really?
But not bad. So then I posted that on Instagram being like, WTF, like what was that ending? Then all these people are like, I'm scared. And I go, no, don't be scared. Like it's not like anyone like anything super, well, something super dramatic does happen, but it's not like someone like dies right at the end or anything, but it does leave you on like the biggest cliffhanger these books have left us on to date. And it has been confirmed that Rebecca Yarros, the author, she really got like rushed into writing the second book and the third book because Fourth Wing became so successful.
Do you think this one was written too quickly?
No, the second book was written too quickly. That's a confirmed thing. She wrote it in 7 months. She wrote which is crazy. But she has confirmed already that like for her own mental health, she promised her kids like she'd spend the summer with them and not just like be in writing and edits. That means like realistically the absolute earliest we're getting the next book is going to be like 2027. And that's me being generous. It's probably going to be 2028, which like I'm all for obviously supporting mental health and everything. But that being the ending.
But speed this up.
And me not. I'm just like all on theories. TikTok, that's all. I'm like, I'm going to have to reread the whole series.
You think like, someone will come out in the meantime with like a...
alternate
fanfic,
version,
like not fanfic, but yeah, alternate next version. One.
I'm sure those already exist out there, but it's like not. It's just crazy. Anyways, I was just to say that I loved the experience of like the midnight release and all that stuff, and like everyone getting excited about it. We talked about this last week about like it felt very hyped up, but now I need to update you because I finished the book, and if you haven't read Fourth Wing yet,
did you rate it on your app?
Yeah, I gave it 5 stars.
5 stars.
Because it cruised through it. There was action in like every single
page turner.
Like it was a page turner every single scene. I would say if you haven't read Fourth Wing yet or like Iron Flame, Onyx Storm, go experience it because I'm jealous that I don't have anything new to read on that front.
I have on this topic, I have a confession to make. I was like looking at Haley's bookshelf literally last night. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, because we talk about this so much, but I confused the ACOTAR series and this series.
Yeah, but that makes sense.
Being the same
you
series.
Thought it was one.
Yeah.
You thought it was all the same series.
I thought it was the same series. I was like, oh damn, yeah, they're like 7 books out.
No, one is fairies, one is dragons.
I know. Well, I was told this last night. Yeah.
So you were called an idiot last night.
Correct. Yeah. I was like staring at the bookshelf and I was like, why are the author names different?
Don't know what? It's fair because if you either like people read ACOTAR and they read Fourth Wing, they're like one and the same in the sense of like the type of book.
Yeah.
Like they're the 2 biggest romantasy series ever.
Yeah.
But that would be kind of like you thinking Harry Potter and Hunger Games.
I know, which I'm sure happens, but you are stupid.
Yeah, just a little bit. So what are you watching this week?
Okay, this one's wild, Sarah. I've got on a side of TikTok, but also YouTube, and I'm like so into it. You know my job because we work together.
No, do explain it to me.
My job is very like emails and text messages and social media. I've got on the side of TikTok that is like trades, like tradesmen doing jobs.
Like sanding and welding?
Yeah, we're talking electricians installing new light fixtures and like setting up panels, or like I'm on like big home inspector TikTok of like home inspector people like getting under the house and like sticking the screwdriver into the wood to see if termites have been messing around in there.
Whoa.
I love these videos, Sarah, and it makes me long for a day that I could just like wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the job site with the boys.
Interesting.
You ever think about that? You ever think, I could wildly change my career if I just like did a 180?
Sometimes, but I also like it's crazy to me when I think that like people that I know that I grew up with are like electricians, and like all of them went because a
I
lot
respect the hell out
like
of it.
small town, most of the people go into the trades and they make more money than like either of us ever will. They make so much money, and they like do all these things, and I was like, that's crazy. Like it just doesn't make sense to me.
You know what I think I would get into if I was in the trades. I would be like
carpenter.
No, I mean like just the personality trait. I think I'd be the guy like pulling pranks on the job site.
Oh, I'm sure they would love that. What type of trade would you want to do?
Ooh, good question.
I think carpentry is like cool.
Carpentry's cool. Yeah, tossing a hammer around is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think a roofer though. I think a roofer with like a nail gun be and I feel like I would like working in a crew, like a roofing crew.
A roofing crew.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you ever have a midlife crisis, we know where to find you.
Yeah, if anyone knows any roofing crews that I could join, let me know because
it's like take your kid to work day, but take Jacob to work day just so we can see what it's actually
like. Yeah, I feel like I've watched enough TikToks now that I could like hold my own for probably 10 minutes.
Exactly. What are we listening to this week?
Sarah, you're gonna fucking die because this is someone who on Spotify only has 2 songs released, and I think
you found them.
I think both of them are like under 4,000 plays. This is a big hot take. Listen, I know we talked about a couple episodes ago that I am dropping my playlist of what I've been listening to every week. Go check that out. It's Talking Fast, Jacob's what he's listening to this week. I think that's the name of it. On Spotify. Baby Nova, hold on.
Where's
what
Baby Nova from?
Baby Nova, Killed for Sport is the new track. This is a big tune. It's a little Lana Del Rey.
How did you find Baby Nova? Like, that's what I want to know.
Sophia Camara has worked with Lowell, the songwriter, who also wrote
Texas Hold'em,
Hold'em, one other Beyonce song, and has written for like a bunch of really good artists, and is just like a really good artist herself. I like her music more. Yes. Canadian. Yeah. She posted on her Instagram story, she wrote this song with a couple other people.
Got it.
And I was like,
that's how.
I don't know if she's like an industry plant or like, are we talking Nepo Baby? Are you Nepo Baby Nova?
Are you
I don't know.
Nepo Baby Nova?
I don't know.
I like that name though, Baby Nova.
It's a great song, and her other song is good too. So I'm making a prediction.
You're saying
Baby Nova in 12 months time, maybe 18 months time is going to be huge.
The next Chapel Road?
Could be. I feel like she's a little bit, she's not as poppy as Chapel Roan, but she is the similar like vibe.
American or Canadian?
I think she's Canadian. I think she's actually from here. We
could
maybe have
Nova.
her on. Baby Nova, come on the pod.
Look it up.
Sorry, I called you a Nepo Baby Nova.
He didn't call you it. He's just asking out of curiosity.
Yes, but regardless, it doesn't even matter where you come from. Fantastic artist. I have to recommend it. Go check out my playlist too.
I will listen on your playlist. We will up those streams.
What are you listening to this week?
In my entrepreneurial era, and me, being my own boss and setting my own schedule, I have now since entered, because I spend a lot of time by myself now, right? Like I used to spend my time in an office where I would and I'm a chatty Cathy. I would chit chat with everyone and cause office disruption. Because I'm not really having that anymore.
You got to join my roofing crew.
I'm spending it's just called a co-working space. So I'm spending a lot of time sitting and working by myself at Soho House or whatever. And yes, I can listen to stuff at all hours of the day, but I was like, Sarah, let's be productive with this time. Let's life hack, whatever. I've now become one of those bros that listens to podcasts
I'm saying
all the
double
time.
down on it. Don't mock it. I'm with you here.
So I now have become somebody that is one of those people just listens to I don't like the term self-help, but like entrepreneurial type podcasts. I'm now all weekend all I was listening to was Mel Robbins, the Mel Robbins Show. Love Mel. The Let Them Theory. Go listen to that episode.
Ooh, okay.
I've just bought the book. It's life-changing. And I've been applying that for the past year.
Is that a book by Mel Robbins? Or
she wrote it called the Let Them Theory. It's just brand new. It came out a couple weeks ago.
Ooh, nice.
And then she also does the 5-second rule, which is one where you count down to 5 and then force yourself to do the thing that you're thinking about, or example the launching yourself out of bed or whatever.
Yeah.
I've also been listening to that guy Diary of a CEO. I've just been listening, and do you want to know what? It's actually helping me because, not to toot my own horn, but the advice that I'm listening to that Mel is giving or whatever, in my head, I'm like, Sarah, you're already doing that. So
you're on the right track.
That means it just actually made me feel like you are doing the right thing. She was talking today, and the episode I was listening about was how you'll never regret making the choice to bet on yourself or start a company or whatever. Because if you fail, at least you tried. Whereas what you will have regrets about in life is if you don't try, because people like to live in the what ifs.
Yeah.
So I was like, these are all things that are pointing that I'm on the right path. And so,
I love
anyways,
that.
I'm listening to all
Okay.
these podcasts. The Mel Robbins Show.
Any other specific episode recommendations or beyond the?
I mean, what's nice is right now I've just been listening to compilations. So what Diary of a CEO does and what the Mel Robbins Show did is at the end of the year for 2024, they did like episodes based around their best guests or whatever. And they'll like do compilations. Like Diary of a CEO did compilation of all the best finance tips from last year and whatever. And it's so nice because then you don't have to listen to the full episodes. You just get a little taste and then you can go back and find those episodes.
I do that. A few of my favorite podcasts do that, and I don't do it enough. So that's a good tip. I'm going to do that and like go back and did I miss any episodes that maybe I want to revisit?
Exactly. Maybe we should do that. Compilations. Wait,
Yeah.
Whoa. Do we just get an idea? Sorry, Izzy and Jaden. More work.
Sarah, something you did this week.
I went out. And by out, I mean, look, I'm in my late 20s now. I never thought it would happen to me, but it did, where my friends and I no longer go and get sloshed on Fridays and Saturdays. And it used to happen. We had to go out every weekend.
Yeah.
And something shifted in the past like year where we just don't do that anymore. We're really big on sitting around and watching a show together or watching sports or having a game night, like whatever. It's fun. But this was an intentional girls' night out, not for a birthday, not for anything. We just did girls' night out. We got dressed up and we went and we're taking shots and we had bottle service. And but the best part about it was we were at La Plume. They have a speakeasy called Bon Nuit.
Right.
The best part about this bar, because we were a little nervous when like there's bottle service and a DJ. I'm like, oh, that's not really like my vibe. Like everyone's like, is there gonna be like?
Is it completely separate from like the restaurant side of it, or like how?
Yeah, it's like upstairs. Like it's on one of the levels of the restaurant.
Right.
It looks like a bathroom stall that you're entering.
A little,
and then you walk through. Yeah, and so you go to the back. So when I said DJ and like whatever bottle service, my friends were like, are we going to be going to like a club like when we were like 19? Like I don't fully understand.
Yeah.
This was such an ideal scenario because we could sit, eat food, talk. The DJ wasn't he was loud enough that you could like feel the vibe and you felt like, oh, I'm out, like I'm doing something, but it wasn't so loud that you couldn't hear the person across from you. It was incredible. And we got to sit the whole time. Perfect night out. And then I still went to the Wheat Chief after because I haven't been in so long.
Of course, yeah.
But
I do love a bottle service experience.
Yeah,
I mean, nice. I'm not doing that all the time. Almost never. But like if you have food with it,
it's so nice. My God. It's so nice.
Yeah, forget about just what you're mixing in there, like on the table. Let's get some chicken fingers.
Exactly.
Or something
Exactly. Oysters. We had like battered shrimp. I did go to the Wheat Chief after though, as part of my night out for like the last hour.
Does the band still remember you?
Yes, the man quite literally. I was walking to the washroom and he goes like he's like singing. He goes. My friends are like, this isn't real.
He gave you a cute little wave.
I was like, he's not gonna remember me because I've aged 17 years since I've been here. I don't know the last time I was there. And also I went to the Wheat Chief and I used to be the youngest people at that bar, and this was only like 2 years ago. Now we're the oldest people at that bar.
Yeah.
So we get in, this guy, like I can't say guy, this child like looks at me and goes, you're from Coburg. And I was like,
whoa. Oh my God, yeah? You babysit him or something?
He goes, yeah. I go, yeah. And he's like, we went to Terry Fox together. I go, well, whipping out the elementary school, crazy. We went to Terry Fox, but you're way older than me. You went. And I'm like,
you love to hear that when you're at a night out. Be like, oh yeah, I've seen you before. You're way old.
And then he said the name of one of the guys that he goes, oh yeah, my roommate's like whoever, and said the name of the kid he was roommates with. And I literally was his camp counselor.
Oh.
So it was like the second plane is at the tower. It was like double whammy, like bam, bam. I felt so old. We literally left 2 minutes later. I was like, this is too humbling. We need to leave. I was like, that's it. That's my call for the night.
Okay, this is actually a really good one for what I did this week too, because I went, it was right after Dottie's, the restaurant that I went to. I had to zip across town and then go back. I was going to a concert. Two guys called Jersey. Sarah, you're not going to know them.
There's no world.
If you want to fucking dance.
They're called Jersey?
You got to go to a Jersey
Two
show.
People.
Yeah. They're from France. They're like producer DJ guys. You would maybe recognize one of the songs, but like it was like fun dance music.
Where
it's so
do you
fun.
have the time to like search out all these artists?
You know what? I didn't actually know about these guys. My friend Rich was like,
he's a DJ though.
Yeah, and he's like, I kind of know these guys, so I went with Rich and Andre.
Okay.
And our friend Arthur, and it was just the four of us. We're like 30s to 40s kind of guys, right? And like we're pushing, we're nowhere near 20s anymore. And but it was the same thing. We're like, some of us were drinking soda.
Yeah.
Because you got to go up and got to do something tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it was so funny because we were in line and it was cold outside, and I couldn't remember the last time I waited in line to get into a place.
Same.
And like was shivering a little bit. And then I saw this big Uber XL pull up, and there were like 5-6 people got out of it, and they were so young, and they like went up to the bouncer, and they were so sly about it. And I used to be like this every now and then.
The
you slip them
confidence
some
you
money, you slip them. Everyone gave them like a little bit of cash, and then they just
Easy.
like walked in. And I'm like, damn, like I don't have moves like that anymore. But then we got in there, and it was so funny because we were, yeah, the guys are like producers, and they were talking about the acoustics of the room and like, oh, it was interesting that they did this with the theatrics of their set and this part of it, which I was super into as well. And of course we're like dancing, we're getting into it, but like the kids were dancing. I was like, damn, I just don't have the energy like that anymore. Every now and then, yes. Didn't have it the other night. And I did, like you're saying, was an experience that made you feel a little bit older.
It also depends on like the energy of like the age group. Like I think of like when we went to your like good friends.
Just Friends.
Fuck, I called the wrong thing. Everything.
Company,
Good Fun, Just Friends. When we went to Just Friends, but it was like all people like either like my age or older, so we could be silly, goofy, and kind of like whatever, and like it was like very like good vibes. Whereas like when you are the oldest one there, it's like it's humbling.
I did like looking at the like they were like maybe 20 years old or like 22 years old, looking at those people and the dynamics of their friend group, where you're just like, oh, like here's the guy that like is trying to flirt with the girl.
It's so funny.
Just, oh man,
do you know what sometimes like I'm like, oh, I look the same as when I was 20. Like I just like don't feel like I've aged, and then I see what a 20-year-old looks like out in
I know
public,
they all
and
had fucking hair.
I know.
I was looking at them, I was like, damn.
You're like, wow, I can't relate. And I was like, whoa, no, I don't look 20. Now I know why I don't get ID'd anywhere anymore. I can't. What is something that you're loving to finish us off?
I don't want to jinx it, but I feel like every year I go through a little bit of a hiatus of running. In the fall to the early winter, I just like kind of don't do it.
Dude, I'm still in my hiatus, so I feel you.
Yeah. So, but then like sometimes I get a little bit down on running, like it's so much to like get back into it. I'm out of shape right now, and I'm not as fast as I was like a few months ago. But I've started to like it again. So I've been running outside in the cold. It is freezing.
Yeah.
But oh my God,
that's what's scaring me.
I'm liking that I am approaching it now with passion again.
Good. I love that.
Which is something that I lost at the New York City Marathon I was talking about, which is a great experience, but like it was work to train.
Tough.
So anyway, I'm back and I'm ready for our run clubs, which is going to be probably launching.
That's like what makes in March. That's what makes me excited to run again, is like run clubs. But then I know I need to run a little bit before then so that I'm not dying at run clubs. So that's like February will be my kick in the butt to finally start running again. Yeah.
Well, Rich, speaking of the guy that I went to concert with, he is coming to our run club, he said, because he signed up for the May Marathon in Toronto.
Does he want to hold the speaker and DJ while he runs?
You know what? If we were to do, Rich, I'm going to send this to you. If we were to do like a social thing,
he would DJ after.
He's British as well. He's got a British accent.
Didn't you do this with a spin class? Couldn't we do it with
100%? We'll do it with a run club. So we'll partner with a coffee shop and we'll do the run club, and then we'll end at the coffee shop with the DJ. Then Rich will DJ.
And then also, didn't you see that that's popular now? Like there's this like
I know, we almost went to it that morning. Yeah, I know.
There's this like, so we could just do our own version.
The coffee party.
Amazing.
Give them a shout out. They're nice. Sarah, something you've been loving this week?
I've been loving working at my co-working space, aka Soho House, which sounds very pretentious when I say it, but for those who don't know, it's a members club. But I've just been loving going and working there because
what's the vibe of it when you walk in? Like, what's your setup?
Oh, it's changed. I'm figuring out my setup right now. I've been sitting in different areas every single day. It's so funny though. There's me and this one guy though that work there like almost every single day, and I clock him because he always sits in the same spot in the corner. They're at the point now where they know my order, which is great.
What is your order?
They just go, latte. Once I sit down, I go, yes, please. And so
that's kind of fun. That's cool.
I'm like, oh, I'm a regular for this membership thing that I pay for. So like, of course it should be that way. But anyways, I just like it because I go and I'm really intentional about like time blocking when I'm working. So it's like, I go and I work at Soho House for like 3 hours straight, and I'm like not doing any distractions. Like my phone's not doing a disturb. I'm like truly just like working solidly for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then I can do whatever I want with the rest of the day. It's way more productive for me than like being at home, doing a little bit of work, doing something else, doing a little bit of work, doing something else. Like I just find it makes me, I choose either the morning or the afternoon, and I just like, it depends on the day when I go. And it's been really helpful for just productivity, which has been great. So if you are someone that like works from home a lot, like yes, the comfort of working from home is great and it is a great privilege to work from home. But if you're like an entrepreneur, you work by yourself. I've been talking with a lot of my girlfriends who are either other creators or whatever, and doing like working days with them, or other entrepreneurs, which is fun. So if you want to do a co-working day, let me know.
That's honestly a really good tip. I'm going to take you up on that because I noticed specifically today, I was trying to block out my day and I was going to do a Peloton workout in the morning, start off the day with a nice little bit of exercise, get the endorphins going. going. But like one thing after another kind of creeped in. And because I was just sitting beside my computer, it was so easy to be, oh, I'm going to jump on and do this email. I'm going to do that contract.
Get distracted.
And then it got pushed by like, 6 hours, and all of a sudden my day is kind of all over the place.
And then you're like, I can't quite do it because now I have to get ready to go to the pod, or I have to do like
yeah.
I know.
Where if I had a little bit more structure, maybe the day ends up being more productive.
And then
overall.
it's also guilt free. So like I went there early this morning, like 9 a.m. and I knew I was working until like I had this event at 1. So I worked hardcore, and then I was able to just like pop into a Winners this afternoon and whatever, and know that I got all my stuff done. So
okay,
anyways, co-working soon. We'll do it eventually. Our next guest is someone that, although she's a professional and wonderful, I really hope that I never personally have to call, because that would mean I'm in a crisis of some sort, or I have some bad juju out in the air. But I'm so excited to learn all about it from the other side. Please welcome Tieja MacLaughlin, who is a crisis PR consultant. Thank you so much for coming to Talking Fast.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
That title, we talked a little bit like off camera about how like you tested some different titles out.
Yeah.
How would you describe to the everyday person what you do for work?
Yeah, so I'm a crisis PR consultant, as you've said. High level, I manage reputation. So people come to me when there's a problem, and it's my job to help them fix the problem, essentially. So primarily reputation damage. So it could be negative news articles coming out, companies going through turmoil of some kind, legal situations. Literally no 2 days are the same. So
I love that. How do you find yourself work? It's such a specific area of like PR. How did you find yourself in that area?
So I guess backtracking, I started my career in the journalism industry. So I was on the opposite side of things. So
that's good, because you can get a 360.
Exactly. I completely understand what reporters need and are looking for, and what they want, what's newsworthy. Exactly. Yeah. So I have the respect and appreciation for that. I then completely sort of switched sides and started working in marketing roles, PR roles, and was just sort of bouncing around agencies, not really finding anywhere that was a good fit for me. I got laid off from my last marketing gig. So I had a little bit of severance money to kind of figure out if freelancing was going to be for me. And it was never a goal to start a business or, be an entrepreneur. It was never something I aspired to. But I got my first client and my second client, and I was kind of doing everything, every marketing job you can imagine, social media, earned media, whatever. And so one client led to 2, 3, 4. And before I knew it, I went to file my taxes that year. My bookkeeper was like, you have a business. And I was like, what? No, I don't. Like, you legally need to charge taxes.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's what always happens with like with people that didn't intend to be like start a business. It's just like it's when you get the like, oh, you should be charging HST, and you go, whoa, wait,
yeah, exactly. And so that was when I started to take it really seriously. And I was like, okay, let's do that. If we're gonna do this, let's do it. So that, I started out with marketing and doing everything under the sun. Then that kind of honed into PR. And then it was the year before the pandemic, and I made a decision just on a whim, essentially, that I was just going to focus on crisis PR. And it was the best decision I ever made, because when the pandemic hit and the world was in crisis, everybody needed crisis support. So
can you walk us through what crisis means? Because I think maybe I come at it from
as the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni. That's where my brain goes when I hear crisis.
But
or
maybe it's a little bit there's like broader, where like crisis,
because you mentioned company too, so like layoffs, I'm sure, and stuff like that. 100%. As well.
Yeah. Maybe like you don't have to talk specific clients or anything like that, but what areas do you touch in crisis?
Yeah. So I like to say there's crisis, and then there's incidents, and a crisis or an incident, could constitute so many different things. So yes, like the Blake Lively scandal could definitely be that. But it could also be like things like natural disasters, like health issues, financial concerns with companies. And like, there's so many different things that constitute a crisis. Some can be man-made, some could be natural.
Just throwing one out. Yeah. Okay. LA fires, for example, the mayor was out of country and she had said, right, that she wasn't going to do that ever. That's kind of maybe a perfect example. Or
Jasper wildfires is a great example from last year. And I would say that their incident crisis response team handled that so perfectly. Their comms were strong, like their emergency response was strong. And I would say that the communications being so strong likely saved lives. Like that, evacuating people, navigating all of that, like that comes down to communication. So they would have a crisis PR for something of that magnitude. It would be a team in there to manage that. So there's so many different things.
Is that one of the most important things when it comes to, I guess, like kind of controlling a narrative, is getting kind of ahead of it pretty quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, being in control of the flow of information, I think that's one of the, if not the most critical pieces. No matter what type of crisis, you want to be the one that's known as like the trustworthy source that people are getting their information from. Otherwise, it's just gonna, you see it all the time, catches fire on social media or in the media, and before you know it, a small rumor has evolved into a full-on narrative, and it's so hard to climb out from under that.
So is your business more popular now than ever before? Kind of just jumping off where you said that, it's like, it's so easy, I find, if you're not getting ahead of something and getting out there to kind of get information out about whatever the crisis may be, it can snowball pretty quickly, especially with social media. How rumors start, sometimes it's just like someone decides to throw a TikTok comment out there, gets viral somehow, and then that becomes what people perceive as the truth, even though it might be wildly different from the actual story.
Absolutely.
Has social media impacted your business in a, I guess, I don't know if you'd call it a positive way, but, but becoming more popular and maybe more necessary?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, social media has like catapulted the ability to share information. Like, what used to be a 24-hour news cycle is what, you would say in PR, it's a 1-hour news cycle. If that's a couple minutes. Yeah, if that. Yeah. And people drastically underestimate like how quickly you can go viral on something like TikTok or Instagram or whatever. So I like to promote like being proactive about it. If you don't know who the person is that you're going to call when that happens, you don't have time. You don't have time to find that person. So I like to encourage, like, have someone like on speed dial if you need it. And even before that, like, you should be doing proactive things to like mitigate potential future damages. So that's a best case scenario. You save a lot of money doing it proactively as well. Like, if you're constantly going out, getting earned media, doing things that are going to benefit your reputation positively, that's going to be your safeguard and your safety net for if something bad ever happens in the future.
Do you kind of pitch that as a package to a new client, where you have like the proactive aspect of something, where you're like, let's like proactively be working on your image, but then also if a crisis were to come around or an incident, maybe
exactly
to it.
Literally. I mean, the pitch is that you save a lot of money. If I'm getting a call at like Friday, 5-6 p.m. and I got to go to work right away, you're getting charged for that.
So then also, I mean, I would just assume that also helps like build trust as well if you are being proactive, right? Because it's like, I feel like no matter what, even if you are like, if it's total like lie that's going out there or anything that's reactive always comes across as disingenuous.
That's absolutely it. Yeah. And I mean, dealing with any crisis, like speaking of trust, you build trust with that client so quickly, and you're going through like what is usually the worst moments of their lives.
Right.
So I have to go in and set the tone real quick, like as a leader, someone that they can trust, that, my livelihood, my business, my brand, my personal or professional reputation is like in your hands, and you have to open up to me. So it really builds like a instant trust. Like, after I work with those clients, like, we're forever entangled in each other's
some
lives.
Might say a trauma bond for some is what it would feel like. That was gonna be a follow-up question, though. It's like, because everything you're describing, like, it makes so much sense. Like, you're with people during the most stressful time of their lives, usually. Like, are you like in your everyday life like a naturally stressed and anxious person? I would assume not, if you are able to like take on other people's stresses, anxieties, and calm them all down.
It's interesting. Like, I still grapple with that exact like dilemma myself. I think that I deal with conflict and chaos really well. Like I love going in, like getting my hands dirty and fixing it. Like that is fulfilling to me. So when I have, you know, these problems to deal with, it distracts your mind, right? You're
That's
so
true.
immersed in it. It's almost like when you're done with that situation and then it's like cold turkey stopped, that's when you take a deep breath. I feel like that's kind of sometimes
your
when
body like regulates its emotions again. Finally.
That's exactly it. It's the regulation. Yeah. So that's something I've had to learn is how to deal with that. You know, after COVID, I had to take a lot of time. Like, you know, I took a couple months off to just like get settled down because it does take like, and I get it's easy to say, you know, don't get emotionally invested, but I do. You have to. Like
anyone with like a smidge of empathy, you get emotionally invested when it's like the most. Especially, I can imagine like during COVID when it's also like the amount of people that are looking for this
guidance.
Like, this guidance.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
You speaking about that, Sarah, but then also I feel like it. Well, I'll give a personal example. Like I said off the top before we started recording, I'm Sarah's talent manager, so a lot of what I do is like contract negotiations, and sometimes
I thought you were about to say conflict manager. I went what?
No,
I was like, whoa. No, I don't see.
Sometimes those contract negotiations or that mindset can get stuck into my personal life too.
Yeah.
Are you the person in your family who's like the crisis mitigator if something was to happen? Like, does that bleed over, or is
that's true.
The main question
That's
I guess here
question.
is like, is it? I know you kind of alluded to it, but is it difficult to kind of make that code switch to go from, oh, this is me in business mode to, you know, maybe I don't have to necessarily deal with that in this manner. Personally, I'm only speaking from experience. That's difficult for me to do. So if you can do it, I'd love tips.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you have to take off like the fixer hat. You want to fix everything, and it can lead to perfectionism. Like in your personal life for sure.
That'd be tough.
And you know the nature of communications, like you over communicate everything, you ask a lot of questions. I'm sure like you know, hosting a podcast and you go into a social situation and like I ask a lot of questions in social situations, so it's hard to find that line. Like I am so proud of my job and my career, so I don't necessarily like want to separate them.
Right.
And I guess it's also like as an entrepreneur, it's what makes you successful. When
I think so.
Embedded in part of being who you are. I would argue.
Yeah.
When it comes to a new client, are there certain strategies that you implement to kind of build that trust immediately, or does that just come from, you know, there likely being a vulnerable situation from the get-go? Yeah,
so I mean, they all are coming to me vulnerable, and that's not something I take lightly. It almost, it's, you know, I've done some, you know, like work in like the therapy space to just have a basic understanding of like how to deal with like vulnerable people and you know, not giving too much because you don't want dependency either, right? But giving enough that they do trust you. So I mean, one of the best pieces of advice I got was, you know, you can never be a fan, because I think a lot of people that come to me are high profile, I would say.
Yeah.
And I don't have a real fandom kind of personality to begin with, but that was something that was ingrained in me really early, was if you are seen as a fan, you won't be taken seriously. So it's like setting the tone right away that everyone I meet for the first time, if they're in crisis, like we get on a video call and I have one rule, and it's you don't lie to me. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what mistake has been made, but if you lie to me, it's the end of this relationship, because I can't help you if I can't protect what I don't know. So that's what I say. And I think that instantly either turns people off or they're bought in right away.
Yeah.
And so if they're turned off by it, you're not the right fit for me. And if you're bought into it, okay, well, now let's start this relationship. Tell me what it is that I need to know, and we'll find a path forward.
It feels like there's so many parallels between being like a defense attorney.
Honestly,
like like hearing that, it sounds like the same. Like I feel like every like because I like my partner's a lawyer, so like all of his friends are lawyers. So when I talk to any of them, like everything's always just like, and even he says like with he'll do like insurance defense, and he like says to the people, he's like, look, like it's like you have to tell him, you can't like leave anything out, or else like we both look bad, and then you don't trust me to go get you the best deal possible, and then I don't trust you because like you're gonna make me look like an idiot in there. So it's like the same thing, like that trust is built. I mean, it sounds the exact same as like defending anyone as an attorney.
I work a lot with lawyers too. Get a lot of business from like criminal defense lawyers.
That would make sense.
So absolutely same mindset.
It's like a Venn diagram. It would be like in the same like set of skills.
Well, that was actually going to be one of my kind of main questions for you too, is like, how important is the truth? You kind of just answered that. But you know, I think a lot of people might look at the business and be like, oh, it's kind of, you know, you're hiding things, but
absolutely.
But that's not necessarily the case, right?
I think that's such a misconception, is like a spin artist or like cover up. And I think that's so irresponsible. Like, it's irresponsible PR, first of all, if that's like what you're pitching to the client is, we'll fudge the truth or cover it up. Yeah. To me, that just means you're going to need to hire me again in a couple of weeks or months.
You'll be found out or
when you're
something,
exactly.
Right? The truth is out there in some way, but
the best crisis PR, you should not need to hire me again, because I've got to the root of the problem and I fixed it.
Right.
And that should be it. So, you know, I consider my job to get to the root of the problem and then communicate how the problem has been fixed. So it's less about spinning the truth and more correcting the problem or correcting misinformation that's out in the world or whatever it may be. But to me, it's about getting to the root of it.
And that's where your therapy background training kind of comes in.
Well, I wouldn't say I have a super background.
I guess just the general ethos.
Light training.
You probably also just similarities. You want to find a therapist who's not going to just be in it to work with you for the next 20 years. Hopefully help you get to the root of the problem.
I'm just curious, is there like times of year where you are busier than other? Like, I know like every industry ebbs and flows in different things, and I just wonder if there's like, is there like a season of crisis? Like, is the holiday time, or is it like the new year when companies are mass laying people off? Like, do you find in your years of doing this there's like an ebb and flow of like times of heightened crisis versus others?
Honestly, not really. I used to think that summers would be like a quieter period because generally a lot of us go on vacations in the summers. So there's less, I guess, opportunity for there to be situations. But I mean, I kind of took that philosophy into my last summer, and I was traveling out east, and I, you know, had like 3 crisis calls while I'm like on hikes out east. So what I thought was going to be a light period didn't turn out to be that way. So it comes at the most odd times.
I feel like that's like news though, because like you said, you like had a journalism background before. It's like very much the same like mindset of news is 24/7. Anything can happen. The days that like the worst thing you can say in a newsroom is like, oh, it's really slow
a quiet
today.
Day.
It's a quiet day. And everyone's like, no, because now someone's going to die or someone's going to step down as prime minister. Like something's going to happen that's going to blow the whole thing up.
Has there ever been a case where you haven't worked with a client?
Yeah.
I feel like that would happen more often than I'd think maybe.
Yeah, I have. So, you know, there's obviously moral and ethical lines when you're dealing with like, you know, these types of situations. I know what my sort of line is. There was one situation years ago, and this person had given me a really sad story about how they had made mistakes to do with like dealing drugs, and that they, you know, had, you know, found God and kind of, you know, taken a new turn in life. And I ate it up. I bought it. I bought into it. I was like, okay, like I'm ready to help you move forward in your life. Well, I did my own research. I mean, that's part of what I have to do is validate what you're saying. And I found out that that wasn't the case at all. And so I, you know, ended the contract there because I'm not going to actively represent someone that's dealing
also
drugs.
Like you just said earlier, it's like as basic as you can't lie to me. Like
exactly, that's exactly it.
Is that one of the best skills you've maybe honed? Is like a good bullshit meter?
I have an impeccable BS meter. Impeccable.
Well, you must at a certain point just see the same like attempt at cover-ups over and over again, or attempt at at a certain point it just be matching patterns. I'm sure.
It is exactly it. The kind of the way that it's always so wordy. Like it's a really long. I'm just like, give me a yes or no answer, and it becomes a long-winded sort of detailed response, and that's usually a signal that something's not right. Yeah,
we talk to a lot of content creators on this podcast, but then also people who, you know, are on social media, active in social media for maybe their business, personal lives. Are there any tips? You know, we talk a lot about your digital footprint and like what maybe exists for years in the past. Are there any tips for, you know, going back to what you said about being proactive about your image, of what people could maybe do to make sure that they're kind of covering their bases and aren't going to run into any issues?
So the number one thing that I would recommend to anybody is to buy your name domain and set up a really SEO optimized website. So if you think of search engines, where do we go when we want an answer to a question? We go to a search engine, we Google it. So the idea is there's 8 or 9 slots is what I call them. That's not the technical term, but I say there's internet slots.
On that page there.
Exactly. The more of those spots that you own, the more control over the information that you have. So your name domain is your first name, last name, .com, .ca, whatever. That, because it's an exact keyword match for your name. So if I want information on you and I Google your name, like sarahjenkins.com would rank first if it's optimized properly. Yep. So you now own one of those 9 slots. Now, if you open social media channels that have that exact name, you can, ultimately own all of those 9 spots on Google. So if you were to start somewhere, I would say buy your name domain and build a website. People, I think, get so consumed with it being like aesthetically pleasing. It's just for the SEO game. You don't need that.
It's just like a placeholder essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's it's in your insurance policy essentially on like, if you need to control information, you can issue it on your website or your social channels or whatever. But you need them established in order to be ranking and optimized properly. So that's like a really simple thing that I think people and everybody should do that, especially if you have a public profile. Like, absolutely do that.
Yeah. Are there any, like, would you suggest like a yearly audit of social media things in case, like, sometimes I worry like, oh God, did I say something that I should maybe go back and check and like see if
I've definitely had some clients that have come to me and just said, can you like research me to see if you can find anything bad? Like, I'm starting a new job. Like, I want you to just do a scrub of me on the internet.
Do you have that just as a service of like?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, incredible.
We call it research.
Of course. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so smart.
A lot of companies, and I would say the past couple of years, a lot more companies have hired me to do research on consultants, their employees, different people in their ecosystem to see if there's anything out there that could be negative, that could reflect negatively on them as an organization.
I think that is going to get more, this is maybe going off on a bit of a tangent, but get more important, speaking about the SEO, optimization of this, of kind of controlling that story with AI. Sometimes I'll go into ChatGPT, and I did it this morning actually, because there's the new DeepSeek out of China, a new platform that apparently is a competitor. But very good. And I was just searching our podcast to see what both platforms equally knew about our podcast. And some information was just completely incorrect, which has got to be something that, like, as people become using AI so much more often, that information has got to be a new thing to control, right?
Absolutely. So what's feeding the AI is where you need to proactively tell your story.
I was gonna say like those like slots at the front of Google. That's where it's
pulling from. Exactly. Right? So you need to basically feed it the information so that what it's sharing is accurate. So each AI model will pull different, like whether or not it's pulling from Twitter, or they each have their own set of data sources. So it's understanding what those data sources are, and then, like I said, feeding it the information. Otherwise, it can, just make stuff up based on patterns it sees of what it thinks, which then, it can become something that's completely not true.
Yeah, there is another Sarah Jenkins out there.
There's lots of Sarah Jenkins. Did you know, fun fact, I have the 85th most common female name in the United States of America.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
Sarah Jenkins,
full name.
Because Sarah is so common, and then Jenkins is so common. So that's why buying that domain was never even an option for me.
Congratulations! Difficult,
yeah, exactly. Is there a specific social media platform that you find the hardest to deal with misinformation on?
Ooh, good question.
Or were the most problems come out of?
I think lately Facebook has just taken on a life.
I was going to say,
own.
I was actually going to ask earlier if the Meta, also the Canada, not being able to share things, if that has had an effect on strategy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the community management, rules have gotten really lenient. It's kind of, clients will come to me and say, there's been, what I get often is a private Facebook group has been formed to basically slander a person or a business. And they're like, how do we get this group taken down? And the answer is you can't.
Yeah, right.
And even if even if there was something truly slanderous within that group, within a post, the legal steps you need to take to get it down will take you literally years in court. Like it's not an easy fix. So by that time, people have formulated their opinions. So that's often when legal pulls me in, because there's kind of a dead end for them or a really costly legal case. So, you know, you kind of have to sort of give up the legal on some senses, and then bring in someone like me who can help, you know, shift the narrative where it needs to be. But I would say Facebook has definitely been the most challenging, especially with those private groups.
Yeah, I forgot about groups.
What are some of those tools then to shift that story in a direction that you're looking for?
Well, so there's kind of two angles to this. Like the first thing I make anybody do when they, you know, we sit down and kind of formulate a plan is like, you need to give me your top 3 objectives here, like your top 3 things that are important to you, because we're not going to achieve everything. The nature of a crisis is that we're making tough decisions and you're not going to get everything you want. So, you know, they come to me and they say, I want everything scrubbed off the internet and everything's going to, you know, I want a perfect reputation. Like that's like setting expectations. That's just not possible. So what do you care about most? Do you care about what's on Google most? Do you care about keeping your job? Like that's something people overlook. Like this can impact your professional life. So is keeping your employment more important to you than speaking out publicly? Because if you speak out publicly, sometimes your employer is not going to like that. Sometimes it's going to violate your contract with that employer. You know, do you value like the privacy of your family, for example? A lot of times families get pulled into it. So it's like, let's set those 3 goals. So in some cases, not dealing with, not even giving attention to these groups or these posts sometimes is the best strategy, depending on what it is that you want to achieve. Because by feeding it attention, the algorithms on the internet and on social media, like they're agnostic. They don't care if you're disputing something, if you're if you're for or against it. All it's seeing is a point of engagement. Exactly. So a negative post gets posted, the person immediately wants to go and run and respond and defend themselves. By doing that, they're drawing more attention to it, more visibility.
I'm describing my entire life on TikTok.
How many times have we seen just like a kind of half-hearted apology video that like just adds more fire?
It makes it worse. Exactly.
Fuels the fire,
So in some cases, and it's really, I would say that's actually the most challenging for clients.
It's so hard to not say anything.
It is, But then you can do a complete, you know, you can go on the complete opposite. People can build entire like social personas around like hate views and like
those people must not live with anxiety. Or like I'm like, how do
you need to be so like emotionally and like strong.
I know people that do that and they purposely like breed controversy because they know it gets clicks.
Just rage
I
baiting,
could not be one of those people. Okay, I'm going to give you a really funny example because you've previously worked in sports and stuff. I used to work at CBC on the Olympics, and I tweeted, this is back in the 2022 Beijing Olympics.
Oh, yeah. This is good.
I'm excited for this.
I tweeted, okay, so this like woman had wrote an article about how like women's hockey should be removed from the Olympics because Canada and the US always win, so it's not competitive. So that's like the context of the tweet. I then tweeted, if we're going to start removing sports for countries that dominate, then here's a list of the following. And I said, we should remove whatever, skiing because Netherlands always, or speed skating because Netherlands always wins, bobsleigh because Germany always wins, figure skating because Russia always wins. Go to sleep, don't think anything of it, whatever. I wake up the next day getting doxed with all of these like messages and like comments, whatever, in Russian. Like it's all Russian messages or whatever. A Russian propaganda, well, all their news outlets are propaganda there, but a Russian propaganda news outlet had taken my tweet out of context, translated it improperly on purpose, and it made me the front page of their newspaper saying that Canadian journalist says Russia should be banned from Olympics.
Oh my goodness.
And the only reason I knew that this was happening is because this sweet angel, I don't remember her name, but the sweet angel that lives in Russia messages me on Instagram and goes, hey, you're probably confused why all this stuff is happening, but I am a super left-leaning. I don't believe any of the thing the government says, but I'm going to translate this article for you so you know what's happening. And she translated the article, and I had a few like leftist media outlets, whatever, reach out. So I had to like go to my company and be like, what do I do? Because I'm not a journalist. I was a producer. So like, I'm not a public figure. Yeah. And their entire thing was just like, you have to just ride it out and ignore it because like, it's the only way. It's also happening in Russia. They're like blatantly lying about what it was, but it was the hardest thing ever to just like sit and not like report everything or respond or whatever. And luckily they made it to my Instagram, but they never made it to like my TikTok account or anything. But it was crazy. And also luckily the messages were in Russian, so I could not understand what they were saying.
That took a bit of stress on.
But it got to a point where like my boss had to sit down and be like, okay, like, are we gonna have to send like, are they gonna have to send a message to like this like news organization, a cease and desist, all of these things. I'm sitting in these meetings, I'm like, and if anything, I was complimenting them, and it was just taken so out of context. To this day, I like barely use Twitter because like it was the first time I really saw how like one little thing, I don't even know how someone would have seen it, could get taken out of context and blown up out of proportion. But to go what you were saying earlier of like wanting to respond and do something, like I was the most anxious I'd ever been because I was concerned these people that believe Russian propaganda like thought I was a bad person. Like, I don't know. It was just like the most anxiety inducing, but it was 48 hours later and then it was over.
You go into like, it's psychological. You go into fight or flight mode. And, you know, a lot of people that come to me, they're in fight mode. Like they want to fight back, and that's completely normal. And to not have a reaction of that nature would be more questionable.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get that. Like, you know, it's a normal human response. You know, you're in danger, you want to fight back. But, you know, you have to sort of hack the algorithm to fight back in a way that's actually going to be productive. So it's not like that we're not fighting back, it's just that we're doing it in a more strategic way. And if the strategic way is to take the wind out of this post sail, then that's how we do it. We let it die, like go down to ambers, and it's not a fire anymore. Other times there are definitely opportunities, like sometimes you do fight back, sometimes you do punch back hard, but it just depends on, once you do that, like you need to have a very high tolerance to then brace for what's going to happen, which is more publicity around it, more people chiming in with comments. So
apart from I guess the emotional stress as that
I just got stressed telling that story. I have like PTSD. It was crazy.
Do you also go to your clients then and kind of walk through how there might be opportunities both to not just kind of, you know, smooth things over, but also maybe for more growth and kind of not just make sure the image is great, but like elevate the image at the same time?
I think, like, you know, a good saying is that like in crisis, like there's always opportunity. So you can, you know, if you lead through a crisis or handle a crisis well, you can actually gain, you know, there's been a ton of studies done that you can gain more fans, like a more positive image by handling, like, you know, politics is a great example. Like someone that leads well through turmoil, like their poll numbers like shoot up. Right. I don't deal in politics, but that's just kind of an example that you can sort of base it on. So yeah, if somebody, you know, an influencer puts out a post that's not well received, like if they handle it properly, like whether it's an apology or, you know, making light of it, or whatever the strategy is, it's going to be different for everybody. But if they handle it properly, they're going to earn more fans doing it that way. Is there
a particular reason you don't deal with politics?
That's my hard line.
Yeah.
Like I
feel like that's a lose-lose situation.
It is.
I'm curious, yeah.
So like most crises are inherently political. Like,
true.
You know,
they're going to get involved anyways.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, post goes viral online, like it you know, 9 times out of 10 becomes like a right versus left thing in some capacity. So I really pride myself on being moderate and being able to, like, I've worked with very left-leaning people or companies and very right-leaning. So I like having that flexibility to be able to work with both. And it also, just for myself, it keeps my mind like open and expanded and able to like hear two perspectives. You know, once you work in politics, at least from what I've seen, is you're really like pigeonholed, you know, like you work on a conservative campaign, like now you're the conservative person.
Yeah. There's a good community of both left and right on Twitter that loves to just bicker back and forth all day.
Yes. Something like that has nothing to do with politics will all of a sudden become so political. So
if someone was like having a crisis and they do call you at a Friday at 5 p.m. like what's the first thing that you're doing? Like what's the first, like once if I like I'm calling you about my Russian figure skating comment and I'm like, oh my god, blah, blah, blah. What's like the first thing that we're doing?
So the very first thing, like my primary objective is to regulate you, like to get you down to a level where we can make rational decisions. Because if I ask you, like, the first question I need to really get out of you is like, what are these 3 goals?
Yeah.
If you give me that response in a heightened state, it's not going to be accurate. Yeah. Exactly. So the number one priority is getting you down to a level where we can talk in a productive way. I'll never forget, I had one, this was probably one of the more difficult clients I worked with, but they had a workplace death, and it was a heartbreaking like accident. And they called, and they're just a small business owner, right? And they don't know how to deal with this. Like, it's all over the news. Like, you know, now there's speculation that, like, did we do something wrong? And, you know, this couple calls me, and they're all like just distraught, right? Like, just like sobbing, and it's heartbreaking. And I have to listen is the first thing. I think that just, you know, they feel like they don't have a lot of people to talk to. So just even listening, I would say, like, reduces the stress in some capacity. And then it's like, okay, stabilizing, and now we deal with the path forward. But yeah, I'll never forget that call was one of the more difficult. Like, I'm not a grief specialist, right? Yeah, like, to regulate that and then be able to talk, like, you know, you go from such a trauma to, okay, now we have to talk strategy. Like, it's, you know, that's a difficult transition. Yeah.
I'm just, after this conversation, further convinced that you're like part like lawyer, part therapist, and then that's like
all of my clients say that when we part ways. They're like, they're like, I need to now hire a therapist to fill your role.
To fill it. They're like, I understand that's not what you're here for, but it was a bucket that you like filled at one point.
Yeah. Those regular, well, what I assume would be regular kind of small wins are great. Are there any other like larger scale career moments that stand out as something you're really proud of?
Yeah, it's always a fine line because I have so much confidentiality with my clients. So like, I definitely want to like respect their, you know, privacy. But I would say, you know, there's been a few over the years, like most recently, like last year, I definitely worked on something very high profile that was, that I became very like personally invested in, like the outcomes. And it was like a 5-6 month project. Wow. That I'm absolutely sure you've seen in the news. And just the client was, you know, you meet some clients and they challenge you just as much as you know, you help them, but they also bring out, and this person was a leader in their own space. So they, you know, really challenged me to be the best version of myself. So I was really happy ultimately with the outcome, but also just having that, I guess, like personal growth opportunity from somebody that's like excels in their field and was able to then bring that to like our relationship. So
I feel like you just would meet so many different people from so many different walks.
I love it. And it's like, it's like, and you get to know them on such a deep level. I love that. Like, I love like, who are you as a person? Like, you know, whatever the situation is, like, how can we get you past that, like move forward? Like, it's, yeah, I mean, I always like joke with my friends, my personal life has become so less dramatic now that I deal with everyone else's.
True, though. You would have like no, not that like people love drama, but I feel like some people, like you do, like your brain does like catastrophize or like create it sometimes when you're like bored. And so like you would never have a need to create it in your own life.
And my tolerance for things is so much higher.
For sure.
People come to me, like if there's a situation in a friend group, for example, and people are really stressed out about it. I'm like,
dress.
You're like, this is low on the ladder.
You're like, okay, I'm like dealing with the demise of an entire corporation right now. It's like not really it. If anyone wanted to follow along or know more about what you do, where could they find you?
Yeah, so I'm all over socials or my website, which
she's got all the slots, so
all the slots, which is just my first last name, MacLaughlin.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. This was so fascinating. I feel like I learned so much. I love it.
Yeah, and hopefully we won't have to give you a call anytime soon.
Unless it's like a good crisis.
Yeah.
Oh my God, our podcast just shot up to #1 past Joe Rogan out of nowhere. We need help. And that can only happen if you keep listening. So thank you for watching and listening, and make sure you like, follow, comment, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this. We are here every single Wednesday. Bye.